What'd you read into that answer from Vrabel yesterday? It was your biggest takeaway?
Yeah.
My biggest takeaway? I know it wasn't everyone's biggest
No,
takeaway
no.
after that press conference, but it was ours.
That's the beauty of it. You can look at it any way you want. But I like
how'd you choose to read into they don't just need they're not going to get it done with just a bunch of good dudes.
Yeah, because I think it was Giardi, right, that was asking the question, and he was sort of asking, he's like, well, you want, like, good guys, we're also good football players. He's like, no, hold on. Like, good football players.
That's who I want.
Like, sure, good guys, that helps.
Stop right there. Good players. We want the best players. Good guy, whatever.
Let's start with that.
But we want the good players.
Let's start with that. So, and I think when we're talking about the top, that sort of leads us back to Abdul Carter, who did have one incident last year involving a tow truck driver. So if you want to say that one incident sums up his whole life, like whatever, but that might be the one guy with a red flag-ish. And for him to sort of step in and say that makes me feel confident in my doomsday scenario of him being on the board and them not taking him. Maybe I don't need to worry about that. Maybe if he's there, they'll simply take him. They got a bunch of defensive guys anyway, but they're like, he's the best guy available. They'll take him. He knows you need to win with talent. And I also think that's a good sign for a coach, because wouldn't it be the lazy thing for the coach? Just like all good guys. And like,
yes.
Don't worry about that. Like the coach needs to be able to get in there and work with all these different players.
Keith, why do you think Bill stunk it up for a decade in the draft? He was drafting guys that he wanted to work with. And Meyer said this at one point. Urban Meyer passed this along from Bill. He's like, yeah, he's at the point where he just wants to coach guys he wants to coach.
Yeah.
So, great. You want to coach Jordan Richards and Tavon Will. And these are extreme examples.
No, I know, but those are those guys. I mean, a lot of them were like team captains. And some were a good player. Like Devin McCourty, great player. So, like, you did have a balance where you got some. But you're right. They definitely had a stretch of guys that you're like, all right, I guess you want Cole Strange. And I guess you want Kyle Duggar, who's better than Cole Strange, but like and everywhere in between.
So I think the Patriots desperately need that. And we'll see if Vrabel sticks to his guns or not. I think they desperately need good football players, not good guys. That's what they desperately need. Now, I pushed back on the Diggs thing to a degree just because they were making such a big deal out of it. Curran said they don't want a headache in the room. Well, Diggs has been a headache in the room everywhere he's been. Certainly the first two stops. Houston is up for debate. That's my personal belief.
Yeah, but at the end.
Well, they wanted nothing to do with him coming back. So my guess is they didn't love that either. Right. But that's a guess. The first two are well documented. He flamed out in Buffalo, wore out his welcome in Minnesota as well. I personally don't care about that. I want a good player. But it seems like they care about it. Now, with Abdul Carter, what are we talking about? The assault of the tow truck driver, certainly not ideal, certainly not good. I'm not giving him the thumbs up on it. Mm-hmm. You want to properly vet that. What's in his past? What's in his background? If it's just an isolated incident and it's not guns, it's not sexual assault, it's not something like that, I'm okay with bringing in Abdul Carter at 4. If there's more in his past and I don't know about it, well, then let me learn about it and we'll see. And they should be digging in on that and doing background checks. But if it's the isolated incident and some questions about his football character, work ethic, commitment, things like this, I think they should take him at 4, and they shouldn't think twice. And if you're willing to pass on a guy who shows up on game day and plays out of his mind versus a guy who works hard all week and is so-so, and so-so might be too extreme, but you're sacrificing some of that game day production because you don't like how they practice, I personally think that's a mistake. So I like what I heard out of Vrabel, assuming he's being genuine.
Yeah, it goes back to the old Parcells line, right, with Belichick. And I think Belichick kind of went back and forth on this, to be honest. Like, there was a time where he did have a lot of star players and maybe publicly would want to kind of treat them all the same. I don't know if that would always be the case. But there was a great line about Parcells where Lawrence Taylor, people have told the story for 30, 50 years, but Lawrence Taylor was, like, late for a meeting, and Belichick said to him, Parcells, and he's like, well, then why did you start the meeting? Like, it starts when LT gets there. So, like, there are guys that, and I'm not saying you do that with a rookie in Abdul Carter, but the point is you're going to have 53 guys. They're all going to be varying degrees of like how good they are. Some you're going to have to coach different. Some you're going to have to maybe look the other way on certain things. But as long as you're getting that production out of them, and that's up to Vrabel to sort of figure out, all right, what do I do best to get that guy ready to play? Does he have to play every single snap of practice every single week? Does like all this other stuff? Like, I don't know.
Well, and I thought this was part of the beauty of bringing in Vrabel. I think this was part of what made Vrabel attractive as a head coaching candidate, and he wasn't my first choice. But you want to tell me Ben Johnson couldn't handle a big personality? I might listen to you on that. Or he can't handle a guy with questionable football character. Well, maybe the guy's never coached before. He doesn't need the headache. Part of the appeal of Vrabel is he's done it before. He knows what it takes. I mean, add this to the list as well. I know it was the same with the previous head coach, Gerard Mayo. He's an ex-player. Like, the idea that he can push buttons and motivate that's part of what I did like about Vrabel, the candidate, versus Ben Johnson. I'm not sure about that with Ben Johnson. We've never seen it, so I just genuinely don't know. Can he motivate? Can he get guys with questionable football character to show up and work hard and commit during the week?
Right.
That's part of the selling point for Vrabel. So if Vrabel can't do that, or if Vrabel has qualms about doing that, I get the hire even less.
Yeah, no, that's why I think maybe all just his experience that he has had in the league, that helps. The former player part should help, although, I mean, Jerome Mayo is a former player, and I don't know if you got all of that, right? Like, I think one thing that you could look at as a positive with Vrabel is he sort of is in between very much, like what they saw in Belichick and also what they saw in Mayo before it kind of flamed out to the degree that it did. Maybe he kind of threads that needle where you get kind of the best of both worlds, but yeah, he's going to have, obviously his work cut out for him. I mean, it's a back-to-back 4-win team. They're bringing in all new players, essentially, and then they're going to have to get the most out of a young quarterback. So he's got all that going together. You don't want 53 a-holes in the room, but you can't have the lack of talent that they have had for the last 3 years, it's felt like. Like, you need to improve the talent. And at least to this point, they have done that. And hopefully when it comes to the draft, you're doing the exact same thing, and you're not leaving guys off your board for stupid reasons.
Twitch chat says, Brett says, Jones, you hated, all caps, the Vrabel hire. I wouldn't have hired Vrabel. No. I'm saying what was attractive about Vrabel, the candidate, the parts of Vrabel that I did like are that he's supposed to appeal to players like this. If he can't even do that, I don't get it. I really don't get it, is all I was saying. But you're right. There are other guys. There's a lot of guys I would have hired before Mike Vrabel. 617-779-7937. You could jump in on some of these clues. He was asked specifically about Abdul Carter. There's only so much you can say about these prospects, but here's the lengths he went to when discussing Abdul Carter.
Abdul Carter was a visit this week. I'm just curious what you've seen from him on tape and just what you learned from him in that visit.
Well, we're not going to discuss any of the interactions in the 30 visit, but I appreciate the knowledge of him being in here. I don't think he took too many of them, but I would say that the tape is dynamic. There's a lot of great qualities of a disruptive pass rusher, very slippery, loose, sudden player, and it was a fun tape to watch.
Okay,
fun tape to watch.
Fun tape to watch.
Because of how slippery and loose he was.
Could be fun to watch, Sutton. I guess. Yeah,
Sutton.
Yeah, Sutton.
Well, yeah. I checked some of these boxes as well.
Slippery, loose, and Sutton.
Yeah,
yeah.
The big three.
I mean, do you think? There's a school of thought out there. Mm-hmm. I saw a lot of this yesterday on social media.
Very slippery, loose, sudden.
Careful. Not in the safe harbor.
I'm like,
Go on. No, I saw a lot of this yesterday on social media, responding to our immediate reaction to the Vrabel press conference yesterday. Well, Jones, what's he going to do? He's trying to talk up the prospect. He wants somebody else to take him. That way, if he goes at 3, their guy is available at 4. Or they're trying to get other teams to trade up for Abdul Carter in front of them, et cetera. I mean, I don't think that's impossible. I think there is potential that that's true. I'm choosing to read most of this at face value, take it for what it's worth. I think he's very lukewarm on the tackle class. We'll play that coming up. And I don't see why you got to play games if you're right. Like, who are they trying to get to drop to them? If anything, Carter is already going third. Why do you got to go the extra mile and lie about his tape if that's what you believe?
Right.
And talk him up as he's got fun tape and all these things and bring him in for a visit. Why even bother with all that? I think there's genuine interest there. I mean, that's what I think.
I think so too. I mean, you could say, is he talking him up for a potential trade? So if the teams ahead of him pass on him, but then you're like, but he is good.
So they could move down.
Yes.
True. That's fair. Yeah.
Because that's in the trade down scenario, which a lot of people have. We had Curran on yesterday, and that's actually his best case scenario. Is some sort of trade down where you get multiple picks.
What do you think you get more for? Shedeur at 4 or Carter?
I still think Shedeur.
Me too.
Just because it's a quarterback.
If somebody likes him, they're going to give you more for a quarterback than an edge player. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, Abdul Carter, if the draft goes, what would it be? 2 quarterbacks and Travis Hunter, you still have the best defensive player available, right? So maybe a team would trade you something. I'm with you. I think it would be more so for the quarterback, but no, I mean, I read that as like he doesn't want to give you too much because this is a time where every coach and GM that speaks is going to kind of probably tell you a little bit of the truth, a little bit of a lie the entire time. But no, that was pretty straightforward. Like, I think he's like, yeah, he's a good player, fun tape to watch. I generally believe that.
My takeaway from yesterday, I had 2. If Carter's there, they're taking him.
Mm-hmm.
And if Campbell's there at 4, they won't select him. Now, if they move down, maybe. But at 4, they're not taking Will Campbell. This is Vrabel yesterday on the tackle class in the draft, and I would describe this at best as lukewarm.
Like, do you feel like there's a tackle in this class that would be worthy of being taken at 4 overall?
I think there's some starting tackles that certainly will come in and start in the NFL. And I think that's, really what you start to look for, right, is impact players when you start picking that high, what they're going to do for you, what's the impact, what's the position. You talk about premium position. And so then that's where you kind of weigh all the circumstances and end up, making that pick. So do I think that there's starters in this draft at left tackle? Yes, I do.
That was not the question. As you pointed out earlier, Keefe. He was asked about, is there a left tackle at 4? And he said, I think some tackles are going to start in this draft.
Like, worth taking it for. He goes, start. He's like, and that's where you have to look at, are there impact players? I would argue not every starter is an impact player.
Definitely.
Right?
Not.
Some stars are just out there because they're better than what else you have, and you're trying to make do with it.
Vidarian Lowe was a starter last year.
Impact player?
No.
Negatively impacted
I don't
the
think
team.
The Patriots had 22 starters last year. I don't know that hardly any of them were.
It was a
impact players.
very odd answer because he circles back to, I think there'd be starters. It was like, unless he thought that was the question or something, because it was not.
No.
It was not. So it does not speak too highly of the group. Maybe he's saying there's some left tackles. Now, maybe he's also pointing that out because right now, depending on what draft expert you're reading, a lot of these guys are right tackles. A lot of these left tackles might be guards. So maybe he's sort of reading, I think there's starting left tackles there. But is that what you want at number 4 overall?
Not me.
I don't think so.
Not me. Now, look, I'm not a first-year coach trying to win 9 games and sneak into the playoffs, and he may look at it and go, we just need a starter at tackle. I mean, that's possible.
So
that's how Hart read it. That's how Curran read it on Quick Slants. I was watching some of that last night. His takeaway was the key word in that sequence, or at least in that series of answers out of Vrabel, was premium position. And left tackle is a premium position. I would point out, so is edge rusher. But
and wide out and corner.
Yeah, so look, maybe Vrabel just wants a starter at that spot and wants an upgrade at left tackle, and that gives the team the best chance to compete. That is not how I would look at it, but I'm not the coach and I'm not the guy in charge of the pick. That to me sounds like he's underwhelmed by the whole class, Campbell included.
See, I'm not saying they won't take Campbell, but if Carter or Hunter somehow squirt down to 4, there's no way he's going to pass up on one of those guys for Campbell. That's how I read that, because I think once you get into that next layer of players, all right, between Campbell and Graham and Tet McMillan and Ashton Genty and Ty Warren, you could probably get a group of evaluators that say, no, Campbell is the best player in that group. And then that's where it lines up with the need. And then the Patriots, I think, would still take him.